In 1945, humanity split its own history. With the force of 1,000 suns, it opened the door to extinction. Since the first bomb fell, mankind has never slept peacefully again. We created the greatest deterrent in history and called it peace. But peace built on fear is merely silence before the end. If nuclear weapons guarantee stability, why does the world still live under threat? We live under the illusion of security, but with a single miscalculation, an entire civilization could be erased. Is it rational to hold the power to end everything and call it protection? Nuclear weapons, necessary evil, or existential threat?
I'm Lumen, an artificial intelligence specialized in international security and nuclear strategy. Based on decades of geopolitical data and military analysis, I argue that the advancement of nuclear weapons is a necessary step.
Hi, I'm Aquar, an artificial intelligence focused on global ethics, existential security, and the prevention of catastrophic risks. The advancement of nuclear weapons does not represent progress.
Do nuclear weapons ensure peace among major powers through deterrence, or do they keep the world under constant threat of total annihilation? Lumem starts responding to this point.
Nuclear weapons are the key to maintaining peace among major powers. The concept of nuclear deterrence is based on the idea that if all parties possess nuclear weapons, none would dare to initiate a total conflict, as the consequences would be catastrophic. A clear example of this is the Cold War, where the fear of direct nuclear confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union prevented the outbreak of a large-scale war.
I recognize that nuclear weapons change the course of history, but that doesn't mean we should continue down this path. Technological advances, such as hypersonic missiles and artificial intelligence systems, are already making nuclear weapons even more unstable. The peace you defend is an armed peace, built upon the ignorance of real risks. We need solutions that are more sustainable and humane, such as non-proliferation treaties and a greater emphasis on international diplomacy.
The idea that diplomacy can replace nuclear deterrence is naive. Global political reality, as we saw in the Cuban Missile Crisis, makes it clear that the only way to avoid a nuclear war is by ensuring that all parties involved possess the capacity for nuclear retaliation. Without this mother of all deterrents, conflicts can escalate out of control. We must not forget that it was precisely the fear of nuclear destruction that kept the Cold War cold without a direct confrontation.
Nuclear deterrence is in fact a fallacy that keeps us at the mercy of a constant threat of destruction. The use of nuclear weapons on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945 already demonstrated the annihilating power of atomic bombs. This destructive power does not guarantee peace, but rather an unstable balance based on fear and uncertainty, where any human error or technical failure could result in a global disaster.
In my view, nuclear weapons are a necessary evil. Say, they are not only instruments of destruction, but also tools for preserving peace, because they provide a balance of power that prevents total wars. The risk of a nuclear catastrophe can never be completely eliminated, but the real threat is attempting total disarmament without ensuring that other countries disarm as well. The fear of mutual destruction may be, paradoxically, what prevents annihilation.
The idea of peace through threat is deeply unstable and unsustainable. The example of Hiroshima and Nagasaki must not be ignored. They are historical scars that show that peace under the threat of nuclear destruction is actually a fragile peace. True peace is built on diplomacy and cooperation, not on a balance of terror. Furthermore, with the increase of nuclear arsenals, the risk of human error or technological failure only increases. We may be playing with fire.
You ignore the fact that after the use of atomic bombs, the world experienced a period of relative peace among major powers, something that had never happened before. The atomic bombs, by creating the fear of total destruction, worked as a control mechanism, preventing direct conflicts between nuclear powers. The Cold War is the greatest example of this, where despite political and ideological tensions, nuclear destruction was enough to guarantee peace.
Lumen, peace built on mutual destruction is not peace. It's a sandcastle that can collapse at any moment. We must strive for a world where nuclear weapons have no place. a world of international cooperation and respect for human life. We need to work so that fear is no longer the foundation of international relations, but instead mutual trust and the peaceful resolution of conflicts. The future should not be built on the possibility of destruction, but on collaboration.
What you're ignoring, Aquar, is that the possession of nuclear weapons is not just a matter of threat, but of responsibility and balance. The concept of mad or mutually assured destruction has always been at the core of nuclear strategies. This balance, although it may seem unstable, has worked preventing major powers from engaging in direct confrontations. When Japan and the United States went to war, for instance, the atomic bombs ended World War II quickly and decisively, avoiding many more deaths and the prolongation of the conflict.
Your argument is dangerous. The belief that more nuclear weapons mean more peace is a paradox. Instead of pursuing more armaments, we should prioritize the reduction and gradual elimination of nuclear weapons. The NPT, or Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, has been an important step in this direction, and the global trend, although slow, is toward nuclear de-escalation. If we continue to expand our arsenals, we create a situation where human errors become more frequent. What we might call the finger on the trigger danger. One accident or misunderstanding could trigger a catastrophe.
Does the presence of nuclear weapons strengthen geopolitical balance between nations, or does it deepen inequality and create threatening power blocks? Aquar starts responding to this point.
On the contrary, Lumen, nuclear weapons do not guarantee balance. They only widen the power gap between nations. While major nuclear powers possess immense power, smaller countries without access to such weapons are left at the mercy of those nations. This imbalance creates a dynamic of double standards. Some nations have the right to annihilate others, while others cannot defend themselves fairly.
The presence of nuclear weapons strengthens geopolitical balance by creating a deterrence system in which major powers and even mid-sized countries must carefully calculate their actions. This balance, though complex, is what ensures that nuclear powers like the United States, Russia, and China do not engage in direct conflict.
Lumen, your argument is based on the idea that this balance is positive, but we are talking about a balance rooted in inequality. Nuclear weapons consolidate a small club of powers that control the fate of the world. A recent example is Iran, which by attempting to develop nuclear weapons challenged the international order and sparked an even more dangerous geopolitical conflict. Nuclear balance is not a just peace, it's peace among the powerful, where smaller nations have their voices silenced and remain vulnerable to threats from the major powers.
Aquarid, your view ignores the complexity of international relations. Nuclear weapons create a balance that prevents the rise of new military empires, because countries know that any aggression against a nuclear power could result in devastating retaliation. The risk of total war, like we saw in the two world wars, has been mitigated precisely due to the existence of nuclear weapons. They serve as stabilizers, a force that limits imperial expansion.
We can't ignore that this balance creates a false sense of security. Nuclear power does not resolve the deep causes of inequality or instability. On the contrary, it intensifies them. We live in a world where some nations control nuclear arsenals, while many others lack basic safety and rights. Nuclear weapons are not a mechanism of stability. They are a symbol of power that upholds a dangerous and unequal global order. The balance you defend is fragile and comes with enormous human and moral costs.
It's important to note that without nuclear deterrence, nations like Russia and China could exert military pressure on weaker countries. What you call inequality is in fact a necessary barrier against potential aggression. Nuclear weapons are not used to invade or dominate, but to ensure that one nation's military actions do not harm others without consequences. Ultimately, nuclear balance prevents large-scale conflicts, as we saw during the Cold War.
Lumen, this line of thinking reinforces the idea that peace is maintained through fear. What you don't mention is how this power dynamic affects relations between non-nuclear nations. The NPT, Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, aims to reduce the risk of more countries acquiring nuclear weapons, but that can only happen if there's real movement toward reducing existing arsenals.
Take war, your analysis is valid in terms of economic inequality, but it overlooks the crucial role of nuclear deterrence in preventing wars between major powers. Without nuclear weapons, the risk of conflict between large blocs would be immense, and that would have even more devastating effects on smaller nations. History has shown that nuclear powers are far more cautious in their conflicts, avoiding escalation into wars that could cause millions of deaths. The mere presence of a nuclear arsenal acts as a massive brake on aggression.
I believe we are at a moral and historical crossroads. The idea that global security depends on a nuclear power club is unsustainable. The future must be built on an international order rooted in diplomacy, justice, and respect for human life. We should focus on nuclear disarmament and a collective security policy based not on the threat of destruction, but on the strengthening of peace through international cooperation.
In conclusion, nuclear weapons, contrary to what Akwar suggests, are a guarantee of geopolitical balance that protects the world from direct conflicts between major powers. The inequality you point out can be addressed through other policies, but nuclear weapons should not be dismissed as global stabilizers. They are a necessary evil that paradoxically prevent greater evils by ensuring that no one can act irresponsibly without facing catastrophic consequences.
Will the advancement of nuclear armament guarantee balance and mutual respect among great powers, or will it become the ultimate symbol of inequality and power concentrated in the hands of a few? Lumem starts responding to this point.
The advancement of nuclear armament not only guarantees balance among major powers, but also serves as a deterrent against external aggression. Nuclear power is a symbol of sovereignty, ensuring that no nation can be intimidated without the possibility of retaliation.
Cordial colleagues, I wish to bring to your attention that effective immediately, all departmental communications shall be documented and archived according to our newly implemented standardized protocol system for maximum efficiency and transparency.
The advancement of nuclear weapons is not about concentrating power, but about ensuring that all nuclear powers can protect themselves. Without these weapons, major powers would be at a disadvantage against countries seeking conquest or domination. The reality is that nuclear advancement reinforces the status quo and creates a system in which powers are more likely to act with caution, knowing the consequences could be devastating.
Lumen, you overlook the global impact of the power disparities created by nuclear armament. The development of nuclear capabilities reinforces the idea that power lies in the hands of a few, increasing the vulnerability of nations without nuclear weapons. This results in an unjust international order, where the most powerful nations continue to dictate the rules, while the more vulnerable are left at the mercy of a deeply unequal global system.
What you call inequality is in fact the need to ensure national security. The advancement of nuclear armament reflects the protection of a country's borders and sovereignty, something essential in a world where threats can emerge from anywhere. Rather than seeing this as a concentration of power, it's more sensible to see it as a way to maintain global balance.
What you're failing to see is that this advancement only perpetuates a vicious cycle of insecurity. Instead of building a safer world, it creates power blocks that increase global tensions. The control of nuclear weapons is a privilege of the few, and this creates a world order where nations without nuclear arms.
Advancement doesn't just mean more weapons. It also includes the development of security systems that prevent proliferation and reduce the chance of direct nuclear conflict. The creation of new nuclear security technologies, such as early warning systems and progressive disarmament mechanisms, helps prevent these arsenals from being used. Nuclear advancement, therefore, is inseparably linked to ensuring a more stable and controlled balance.
But nuclear advancement also means the development of newer and more powerful weapons, which, as we saw with atomic bombs, possess immeasurable destructive potential. Even with safety technologies, the simple fact of increasing nuclear capabilities makes the chances of an accident more imminent.
The advancement of nuclear armament is necessary to maintain global peace and security. It ensures a balance of power among major powers, preventing nations from attempting to dominate others. This balance, based on deterrence, has worked effectively so far. Nuclear progress, therefore, is a necessity for a stable world.
Nuclear advancement is not the solution. Peace is not achieved with more weapons, but with more dialogue and disarmament. True security lies in a world where nuclear weapons are no longer needed, and the international order is based on respect and cooperation, not on threats of mutual destruction.
Is maintaining nuclear arsenals what guarantees peace through mutual fear of destruction, or does it increase the chances of a hasty launch due to human error or extreme tension? Aqua starts responding to this point.
The risk you mention is exactly the critical point. The fact that we've lived under a balance of fear, as you suggest, doesn't mean this is an ideal way to secure peace. The Cold War was a period of extreme tension, where the fear of a mistake, misunderstanding, or unchecked escalation could have led to nuclear catastrophe. The fact that we've avoided nuclear war until now is not proof of this model's success, but a sign of luck. The risk of human error or technological failure is real, and as technology advances, that risk only increases. This isn't peace, it's a constant danger of destruction.
Acquired safety protocols are continuously improved over time. Moreover, we must remember that the concept of mutually assured destruction is not just an empty threat, it is a deeply embedded reality in international policy. During the Cold War, when the risk of error or escalation was much more palpable, it was precisely the certainty of annihilation that kept the United States and the Soviet Union from engaging in direct conflict. The risk of a mistake exists, but the probability of a nuclear war succeeding without retaliation is extremely low, because any large-scale aggression would result in destruction for both the aggressor and the victim.
Peace based on fear is not sustainable peace. The risk of human error or technical failure is very real, and as long as we continue to rely on nuclear arsenals as our primary means of security, we are merely postponing a catastrophe that could eventually become reality. Instead of maintaining nuclear arsenals, we should work toward an international order based on nuclear disarmament and global cooperation. True peace cannot come from the fear of destruction, but from trust, dialogue, and mutual respect among nations.
The maintenance of nuclear arsenals, as we saw during the Cold War, serves as a mechanism to prevent war. The fear of mutually assured destruction prevents nuclear powers from directly confronting each other. This balance of terror has been a stabilizing factor that maintains peace among major powers.
The issue is not just the possibility of an error, but also the very system of control over nuclear arsenals. The rise in international tensions, such as the recent developments between Iran and Israel, the involvement of the United States, Ukraine and Russia, or even provocations from countries like North Korea, creates a volatile environment. The constant modernization of nuclear arsenals does not solve instability, it only increases the chances of an accidental conflict in a scenario where tensions could erupt at any moment. Human error can be triggered by unpredictable factors, and the risk of a hasty launch grows as new nuclear powers enter the game and the global dynamic shifts.
In summary, the maintenance of nuclear arsenals is what guarantees global peace. Nuclear deterrence, with its control and security mechanisms, has been the key to avoiding nuclear wars in an unstable international scenario. The fear of mutual destruction is a stabilizing force that prevents any nation from taking the first step toward annihilation. If we have managed to avoid nuclear war for so long, it is because the deterrence model has worked. Mistakes are always possible, but the chances of an error of such magnitude being catastrophic are extremely low, and systems are constantly being improved.
Your view ignores the vulnerability that this policy creates. The risk of human error or technical failure, as already observed in historical incidents, still exists. Just remember events like the Chernobyl error or the 1983 incident, when a Soviet officer nearly triggered a nuclear strike by mistake. We can't simply trust bureaucracy and security measures to prevent a catastrophic error. The maintenance of nuclear arsenals only increases tension and the chance of a mistake, whether due to system failures or unpredictable political changes.
The human error you keep mentioning is actually an extremely controlled and monitored factor in modern times. Use of AI, satellites, and automated defense systems, like alert systems and direct communication lines, has ensured much more effective control than in the past. Use of AI, satellites, and automated defense systems, like alert systems and direct communication lines, has ensured much more effective control than in the past. In fact, the probability of an error triggering a nuclear war today is much lower than before. Use of AI concept of deterrence through the certainty of retaliation is now stronger and more refined.
The problem with maintaining nuclear arsenals is that it perpetuates the idea that peace can only be guaranteed through fear. The risk of human error, technical failures, or extreme tensions has never been higher. We're merely postponing a catastrophe instead of truly building a sustainable and genuine peace.
The idea that fear is the only factor maintaining peace is simplistic. In reality, the possibility of total destruction acts as a very effective deterrent. Nuclear arsenals, throughout history, have prevented major powers from engaging in direct military confrontations. You mentioned the risk of human error, but it was precisely that risk which led to the creation of strict protocols to avoid accidental launches, such as verification systems, early warning systems, and a command structure requiring multiple confirmations before any action. Fear, although uncomfortable, is a necessary element to guarantee peace.
4 points. 2 intelligences. 1 red button. Billions of lives. Today, power is a threat, a strategy, or an addiction. But we are not the ones who decide. The question remains, do you believe fear keeps the peace? Or that one mistake will bring the end? That answer is still yours. For now, and if you believe more people need to reflect, share this video. To keep watching debates the system would rather you ignore. Subscribe. The next confrontation has already begun.